True Health, episode 1. What we're hitting today, social spotlight, BOSU plus Pilates equals bullshit Lattes. We're going over great meds or exercise to troubleshoot low back pain. We're talking the State of the Union of American Healthcare, the mission statement of the True Health Show, and we're gonna do our first viewer Q&A. All right guys, so our social spotlight this week is BOSU plus Pilates equals bullshit Lattes. I hate to give this girl a hard time. We're working with Pilates with TDZ here. Just because you add a BOSU ball to something doesn't mean it's functional. Just because you compound movements together doesn't mean that it's more beneficial. And at the end of the day, you have to ask everybody when they create an exercise or performing an exercise, what is your goal, right? If this girl's goal is to get T-Rex arms while she's building her booty in those squats, fantastic. But what I would challenge everybody is, if you're designing programs for an athlete or you're trying to train yourself, what is the goal of that movement? If it's how you look, go for it. If it's how you move, things like this aren't always the smartest. Does it challenge balance? Sure. Does it add multiple body parts in? Of course. Is it smart? Probably not. These are our lumbar extensions. This is a great drill to work on if we're experiencing low back pain. So Sloane's gonna go ahead and lay all the way down her stomach, hands under her shoulders. We're gonna try to keep the lower body relaxed, and we're just gonna have her press straight up into elbow extension. And these are pretty quick. We're gonna have her do another rep here. So things to watch for, we wanna make sure she's keeping her glutes and her hamstrings relaxed. Sometimes when we're in pain, we're gonna contract those to try to brace. The other thing is there may be some discomfort or pain, but this should get better as we go. Now let's say it's too uncomfortable, there's too much pain. We can have her simply come up into a Sphinx prop, and instead of going through active range of motion, we can just have her hang here and work on some deep belly breathing. And hopefully after that, we can have her work back through another rep of lumbar extension once we've kind of warmed things up. And those are our lumbar extensions. Okay, so let's break it down this week. This being the first episode, I wanted to go over the State of the Union of American Healthcare. So let's just start throwing out some stats. The US spent last year around $3.2 trillion on healthcare. That is a massive amount. It is more than any other country in the entire world, and it makes up a large percentage of the entire percentage of healthcare spent worldwide. 115 Americans die every day from opioid abuse. That's a scary number. Every day, 115. 80% of heroin addicts started with prescription medication, right? So we talk about this illicit drug use and illegal narcotic use, but the gateway drug may not even be our gateway drugs, right? Marijuana got demonized for decades of being this gateway drug. And it's kind of funny how things are switching now, and we're seeing a lot of research come down the pipeline on cannabis and medical marijuana, and then a lot of the things that we've relied on for decades as our pain relievers that have been prescribed by medical physicians in private practice and in hospitals for years are actually becoming the gateway drug. 38% of Americans are obese. It's no surprise to anyone that Americans are fat, right? What may be surprising is that the adult obesity rate is actually a little lower now than the childhood obesity rate. So childhood obesity rate's a little above about 40%, which is really scary. Childhood or basically adolescent diabetes is running rampant. All these things are just crazy. And what's even crazier to me is that with all of these, the healthcare crisis, which it goes hand in hand, is health insurance costs just continue to rise as well. So we have people getting sicker that need more care, and it makes sense that it's going to cost more then, because that's just capitalism at its best. But now the people that really need it can't even afford it, which means other people have to pay for it. And we're just in this vicious cycle of, it's a downward spiral. Like we're definitely not making improvements, even though we are supposedly a technological and science mecca as far as industry, and we're putting out most of the biotech research in the world. Approximately 6.3 million US children have been diagnosed with ADHD. 6.3 million. And that's as of this year. 62% of those are medicated. So 6.3 million kids, 62%. So we're looking at about 2.1 million, around there, something percent of those, or 2.1 million children are being medicated using, anything from Adderall to Ritalin to, sometimes antidepressants. So if we're looking at something like an opioid epidemic, which is running rampant, and how we may be just conditioning kids at a young age to rely on medication to fix things, if we want to call it that, we may want to start to question the system, not all of these pathologies or these diagnoses. Around 65% of Americans are on antidepressants. That is an insane number. Think how many people live in the US, right? I think the last number I looked at was somewhere around 300 million. So that means we have a lot of people out there that are relying on antidepressants. There's also a lot of off-label use of antidepressants and antipsychotics and tranquilizers for basically recreational use, which is a whole nother topic, which is probably another gateway into the opioid field, which then can go into more illicit drug use, like we talked about earlier. Getting more into the movement realm, right? Americans sit on average for 11 hours a day. I know I'm sitting right now, so I'm being a little bit hypocritical. 11 hours a day. So if you think that if we're going to get, let's just put it at 6 hours of sleep a night, right? Now we're left with 18 hours a day. That means that out of the waking hours, right, for a normal person, we're only on the move for about 7. This used to be not only completely flipped, it probably meant that we were only sedentary for probably 1 to 2 hours a day besides sleep, right? And that was usually, I'm talking hundreds of years ago, if not thousands of years ago. That sedentary time was usually community time. So there were other good things going on, which the sedentary lifestyle now of most Americans is spent on an electronic device or in front of one for work, or a phone or a tablet. So we're removing the social aspect, or it was spent in food preparation, which is also going downhill. People don't spend time to make food, they go buy it from a restaurant or a drive-through. So the time we're alone is probably not even quality time where it used to be. And now we're sitting on our butts in front of an electronic device. Overuse injuries compromise half of the 2 million youth sports injuries each year. Now, I'm going to say that again. Overuse injuries comprise over half of the 2 million youth sports injuries each year. Why is that a big deal? We're basically pushing our kids through the sports grinder, right? It's normal for a kid to have a fall during a football game and fracture a bone. It is absolutely normal for a track athlete to pull a hamstring every once in a while. What is not okay is when there are far more, right? This is over 50% of these overuse injuries or sports injuries are attributed to overuse. That means that kids are doing far too much, too often, and repetitively. We've talked about this previously in other videos I've done, but it's just insane to think that kids are specialists at a young age, or that kids need to, we were talking about this with a friend yesterday, that kids need to have a thing. Right? That they're a baseball player and they're 8 years old, that they're a swimmer, that they're a golfer. No, they're a kid. And they need to be a kid for far longer than we even think, because they need to develop creativity, imagination, movement patterns. They need to learn how to think for themselves. I don't think kids need to be pigeonholed into a thing early in life, and we can show statistically that it's not the best thing for them either. And the last stat I want to bring up here is there are around 300,000 deaths that are attributed to sitting disease each year. Sitting disease means that we're sitting on our ass so long that we're creating comorbidities that are basically killing us. I mean, that's insane if you think about it, right? We are becoming so sedentary that things like hypercholesterolemia and high blood pressure and diabetes and vascular disease, whatever it is, these things are running rampant simply because we're becoming more lazy. And I realize that our workplace has changed, right? It's moved from blue collar labor far more into white collar service industry. Like, we are a service-based economy now. But to say that we can't offset that through proper movement, proper nutrition, proper sleep, all these things are vitally important. And that brings me into the mission of this show. So the mission of True Health is in the name, right? The mission is to disrupt the healthcare industry by telling the truth. But it's not just that, it's telling the truth better than the lie. So that's why I need your guys' help, right? So I want to provide a provocative show, a thought-provoking show that helps people kind of think about the healthcare industry differently, because I think change is only going to be made one person at a time, and I don't mean me. I mean whoever's on the other side of this camera can have a mass effect by questioning their healthcare practitioner, taking responsibility for their own health, bring it into your own hands. Long gone are the days where we can rely on a practitioner, our family or primary care physician, to be the overseer of our health. And it's no blame on that medical physician. Things have changed. Reimbursement has gone down. Disease is rampant. There are thousands more drugs than there were even 30 years ago. So for one physician to keep up with this is very, very tough. That's where that team approach comes in and is very, very important. But really the responsibility comes down to you as an individual to educate yourself, question, and constantly be using some sort of a filter. And what I mean by filter is videos like this, resources, reading, visiting multiple physicians, getting second opinions. It just really comes down to being aware that you are the only one that is your personal advocate. Even though you may go to some people that are top notch, and hopefully on this show I can bring other physicians, healthcare practitioners, coaches, multiple professions onto the show and show you that there are people out there that are trying to create really intentional and beneficial filters of information. I think at any time other than now, it was not information-based healthcare, but now it is. It used to be, I'm gonna go to my doctor and do what they said. That wasn't information-based, that was basically directive. Now you have to take the information and decide, right? The decision is still yours. Do I take this medication? Do I do what my doctor told me? And the only way you can do that is to educate yourself. And I really hope that this show helps educate you on your healthcare, the healthcare industry at large. And if you're lucky enough to be one of our viewer Q&As, maybe we'll answer one of your questions specifically. And that's what I want to talk about. What is the meat behind this show every week? So each week I will be bringing to the table a viewer Q&A, a guest, or she's behind the camera right now. We'll have a segment called Beau Beards, and it's gonna be my wife, Sloan, and I hashing out maybe a question from a viewer, maybe a topic that we'd like to talk about, maybe just how we're living our life. We're not saying that we're a perfect example by any means, but we literally try to walk the walk and talk the talk. And sometimes we fall out of line with that. And I think if we didn't, we wouldn't have as much ammo to know that we are falling offline. I know that may seem a little convoluted, but I want you to realize I'm not trying to use Sloan and I as a perfect example. I'm trying to use us as a failing example, right? We fail a little bit every day, but that also makes us better. Now, this week we do have our first viewer Q&A. Now, I want videos, guys. I want you to send me a video so you can be featured on this show. I'm all about a DM or an email, and if you're gonna send those videos, send them to drbeaubeard@gmail.com. This week's is a Facebook message that I actually got from a colleague. This is a chiropractor in Illinois. And he said, "Hey doc, hope all is well. Do you have a go-to video for someone who is trying to go to more of a toe running form from a heel strike? Thanks for your help." Now, anybody who's seen my previous videos knows that I talk about running a lot. I don't think I'm an elite runner by any means. I think I have a passion for running and trail running and mechanics and healthcare and movement, and that's led me into a neat little package of information based on running. So let's talk about this briefly. So his question asks, what is good advice for somebody transitioning to more toe running from heel strike? If you listen to my previous videos, you know I'd say don't do it. All right? Why I say that? All research shows that if you're running if you're running slower than a 6-minute and 20-second mile, that you should actually be a midfoot to heel striker, right? So if I'm running an 8-minute mile and I try to transition into a 4-foot or midfoot strike, my prevalence of injury actually goes up because I'm probably falsely placing my foot into a position that it's not meant to be based on my rate of movement. So what do we want to coach people on? We want to coach people on getting their foot under their center of mass as soon as they can. So if I land with my foot out in front, right, or I try to kind of stretch my stride out, that's basically going to put my lower leg at what we call a negative shin angle. So if the microphone is my foot and this is my shin and I'm moving this way and I reach too far and I'm in this angle, that's going to create a lot of impact going up my tibia and up my leg. And then it also makes me basically chew up the back of my leg, my Achilles, my calf, my plantar fascia, because I'm kind of going in and out of ankle motion super fast. The other thing is when I have my foot far out in front of my center of gravity, which is what most people that are a heel striker are going to have, like I said, the amount of impact goes from somewhere from what is a typical amount of impact is around 4 times body weight coming back up through your body when you're running to around almost 8 times. So if I'm let's say a 100-pound runner, now it's not 400 pounds traveling up my body, it's 800. And now you got to think if in a mile I'm going to take anywhere from around 2,000 to 2,200 steps, that's a lot of force being driven up through the musculoskeletal system. So my quick tip is, if you're working with runners or you're a runner yourself, we want to look to see where is the foot landing as far as center of gravity. Center of gravity is usually going to be looked at as a runner where basically your trochanter or your hip is, not where your ear is, because it could be running with the head in a poor position to start with. After that, we would want to look at cadence, right? So if I'm getting the foot under, do I have a fairly quick cadence so I'm actually offloading some of those impact forces and kind of transitioning over each foot instead of spending more time on each foot, which again, the more time we spend on each foot, we see injury rate goes up. The third thing would be, can I actually create a good pull with my hamstring? So do I see a pretty good angle of flexion in the knee as my leg passes back behind me, or is that leg fairly straight? Right? So those would be the 3 things in descending order that I would go after. So again, foot under center of gravity, it would be basically making sure my cadence is appropriate, right? So your normal amateur runner is going to be around 165 to 180 beats per minute. And then third would be getting an appropriate pull and some knee flexion angle to create a short lever and a really efficient gait. So Jason, I hope that answers your question. Like I said, guys, I want more videos from you. I'd love you to be featured on the show. I appreciate you guys watching the first episode of True Health, and we'll see you guys next time.